This is the list of all Robert Downey Jr. movies from the beginning to the end. I hope you will like this video. Thank you. Pound, box office, NA, status, NA. Greaser's Palace, box office, NA, status, NA, Up the Academy. Box office, NA, status, NA, Baby It's You. Box office, NA, status, NA, Firstborn, box office, NA, status, NA, Weird Science, box office, $38.9 million, status, average, tough turf. Box office, NA, status, NA, deadweight. Box office, NA, status, NA, Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Box office, $6.3 million, status, flop. The Pickup Artist, box office, $13.3 million, status, flop less than zero. Box office, $12.4 million, status, flop Rented Lips. Box office, NA, status, NA, Johnny Be Good. Box office, $17.6 million, status, flop True. Believer, box office, $9.1 million, status, flop That's Adequate. Box office, NA, status, NA, chances are, box office, $16.3 million, status, average air. America, box office, $57.7 million, status, average, too much sun. Box office, NA, status, NA, soap dish. Box office, $60.9 million, status, average, Chaplin. Box office, $9.5 million, status, flop Heart and Souls. Box office, $16.3 million, status, average, Shortcuts. Box office, $6.1 million, status, average, Hail Caesar. Box office, $4.6 million, status, flop only. You, box office, $20.0 million, status, average, Natural Born Killers. Box office, $50.3 million, status, average. Richard III, box office, $2.6 million, status, flop Home for the Holidays. Box office, $17.5 million, status, average, Restoration. Box office, $4.1 million, status, flop Mr. Willoughby's Christmas Tree. Box office, NA, status, NA, One Night Stand. Box office, $2.6 million, status, flop Hugo. Pool, box office, NA, status, NA, Two Girls and a Guy. Box office, $2.1 million, status, flop Danger Zone. Box office, NA, status, NA, US Marshals. Box office, $102.4 million, status, average. The Gingerbread Man, box office, $1.8 million, status, flop Friends and Lovers. Box office, $0.4 million, status, flop In Dreams. Box office, $17.1 million, status, flop Bowfinger. Box office, $98.6 million, status, average, Black and White. Box office, $5.2 million, status, flop The Singing Detective. Box office, $659.4 million, status, blockbuster Gothica. Box office, $141.6 million, status, hit Whatever We Do. Box office, NA, status, NA, The Shaggy Dog. Box office, $87.1 million, status, Hit a Scanner Darkly. Box office, $7.7 million, status, flop Fur, An Imaginary Portrait of Diane Arbus. Box office, $2.3 million, status, flop A Guide to Recognizing Your Saints. Box office, $0.7 million, status, flop Zodiac. Box office, $84.8 million, status, average, Lucky You. Box office, $8.4 million, status, flop Iron Man. Box office, $585.2 million, status, blockbuster Tropic Thunder. Box office, $188.1 million, status, hit The Incredible Hulk. Box office, $264.8 million, status, hit Iron Man. 2. Box office, $623.9 million, status, blockbuster. Due date, box office, $211.8 million, status, hit Sherlock Holmes, A Game of Shadows. Box office $545.4 million. Status blockbuster The Avengers. Box office $1,519.6 billion. Status blockbuster Iron Man. 3. Box office $1,214.8 billion. Status blockbuster Chef. Box office $46.0 million. Status Hit the Judge. Box office $84.4 million. Status Hit the Age of Ultron. Box office $1,402.8 billion. Status blockbuster Avengers Infinity War. Box office $2,048.4 billion. Status blockbuster Avengers Endgame. Box office $2,798.0 billion. Status blockbuster Dolittle. Box office $245.2 million. Status Hit Sherlock Holmes. 3. Box office TBD. Status TBD All-Star Weekend. Box office TBD. Status TBD